Hunter Brown and Bryce Elder. Big prospect battle on Apple TV Plus. Well, so far the Astros are 9-10 in this kind of first month of play, which has some people, some fans panicking. If you're a Houston fan, to me they're overreacting. Some people are having fun as anti-Astro people, which to me is overreacting. Last year, Houston started out 10-9 in the first 19. In 2021, they started out 9-10 as well. Same record as currently. Without Altuve, without Brantley, without Lance. So, I don't know, I'm not particularly worried. I've seen some good signs, I think, the last few games. Some guys are starting to kind of figure it out, and we're getting more production across the lineup, and some of the pitchers are kind of taking shape a little bit. I think some of the who you can rely on maybe out of the bullpen is starting to maybe shape up a little bit. But kind of going through these first little headlines and whatnot, you know, there's been some talk about Kyle Tucker as like a 30-30 guy. If, you know, he's able to stay healthy and hits a really hot streak, 40-40. Currently, Tucker has 4 home runs on the year and is 4 for 4 on stolen bases. So a lot of 4s happening right now in King Tuck. I mean, actually wearing his little jersey here just to give a little shout out to the King. Acuna and Tucker are kind of maybe the front leaders as far as like, okay, who could get to it right now. You know, there's some talented guys that are power speed threats. Like the first one that comes to mind is Julio. Like Julio has that kind of potential, I think. But it is fun starting this series with the Braves today. Getting Acuna playing like he absolutely can, and then Kyle Tucker, who is gonna quietly probably have another really good year. So yeah, 30-30 potentially, 40-40 potentially, if all things line up the way people would probably want them to. Still waiting for the Jose Abreu home run, I guess. Man, he's had some hard hit balls in the center field. Would love to see, you know, if he gets in front of a couple of those and is able to pull into the Crawford boxes before they got on this road trip. I would have liked to have seen that, but I mean, he hit that double kind of off the wall. He's been poking singles and bloops and driving in some runs. He's got a solid average through these first 19 games. Still waiting for the kind of that power surge, some of the slugging numbers to kind of show up. But I mean, if he's sitting between Yordan and Tucker, putting up good at bats and still driving in runs, I don't necessarily care what the home run total is. But just something to kind of keep aware of. Like, hey, we're still waiting on that power surge to hit, which is okay. A couple pitching performances, you know, Luis Garcia bounced back after a couple rough starts. He had an ERA like over 7 in his first 2 or 3 starts. I think it was 2 starts. And then, you know, he basically tied some career highs, 7 innings, 7 Ks. He looked like some of those big game moments that he's pitched in. You know, I think back to the American League Series against Red Sox a couple years ago when he was in Fenway and just dropped it and really kind of showed what he could do. Coming in relief last year in Seattle in extras where you know, one pitch changes that series completely, gives them the lead and wins them that game. And so, you know, seeing Luis kind of bounce back from his rough couple starts and then tying some career highs was a nice addition. The cutter looked really good. His command was really nice. Throwing a lot of first pitch strikes. The other pitcher that comes to mind off the top of my head, you know, Hunter Brown's pitching tonight against Bryce Elder against the Braves. And, you know, if he has another solid start tonight, Diesel could be kind of looking at a top rookie performer of the month, potentially. You know, I don't know where he really ranks in that conversation right now. I haven't really looked at the rookies across the board. But yeah, I mean, he got touched up a little bit versus Detroit of all teams, his first start. But settled back in on the road, has another road start today. If Hunter Brown has a good performance, I think he could be in that conversation. The Blue Jays kind of came to town, probably the strongest team so far on paper that Houston's played, and of course that's when we're going to build some electric environments and we're going to play our best baseball apparently and finally get that home series win. That first series win at home. The 8th inning electricity, man, like Montero comes in and based off of last year, like, okay, well, the 8th inning is, it's a tight ball game. It's a 1-run game. But you want to bring out, your setup guy to get the ball to Presley as soon as you can. And, man, he just didn't have it. And, it's going to happen sometimes out of the bullpen. Some people are ready to kind of call for Montero to not be a high leverage dude, but at the end of the day, like, we've signed him for 3 years, so we're gonna need to just figure out a way to get him back to where he needs to be. But Brian Abreu comes in and just is nails. Ice in the veins. Had a breakfast of champions. He looked like he did in the postseason, man. And to go through the 3 outs that he went through, getting Springer, Bo, and Vlad with bases loaded, no outs, and getting out of that jam, and then the offense blows up in the 8th inning and puts the game basically out of reach. Presley's warming up for a 1-run game, potentially being down, trying to make sure there's no more bleeding. And instead, it winds up being like a 6-run lead, and basically just out there getting work in. Anytime Toronto comes to town, you get to see, Cav and Biggio, Craig kind of get to talk and do their father-son Houston Blue Jays thing is always cool. Getting Springer back in the building is always fun. Forever stand George Springer. And, Vlad and Bo are 2 of the brightest stars in the game right now, so especially bright young stars. And so I always love when Toronto is in Houston. I really enjoy that team. Some injury notes, Chaz's place on the 10-day list. He had that off the wall kind of collision, and he was pulled from that game. But it was marked as like vision problems, like he knocked himself out, I guess. I don't know. But apparently vision's all good, but he has a lower back strain that he got in a workout. And so, probably not really a big deal. Probably see him back as soon as his 10-day stint is over. Brantley's still on pace to return in May. There's some expectations that he might start in AAA Sunday. I think it's probably more likely early next week. Just things always seem to kind of be delayed a little bit more than what you are expecting at the time. And so just to keep an eye on that, adding another lefty bat to the roster could be a lot of fun. Hopefully that swing is coming along pretty well for him. Altuve continues to be in the dugout around the team. I still kind of have that June 1st date circled. Could be late May, could be a little bit later into June, but right around that turn of May to June is kind of the expectation. Some days he shows up in that full cast of one color, then another cast of another color, and then he had like a brace on, then he had just like a little sleeve on his thumb, it seemed like. And so Altuve is just doing Altuve things, but there seems to be a consistent kind of growth, I guess, in terms of his recovery. There was like one time, I think it was there was a first career hit, and the dugout was calling for the ball, and Altuve's like waving for the ball, and he like makes kind of like a fake grab or maybe a real grab, I'm not sure, but he makes like a grab for the ball with that little like sleeve on his hand. I'm like, oh gosh, please, please not like this. Lance is looking kind of in that June area as well. He started doing some long toss, which is good. His throwing program's starting to ramp up some. He's been adding velocity pretty consistently from what I've been hearing. Probably looking to add his off speed and breakers to the mound next week. And then we'll start probably getting him ready for a couple rehab starts in mid-May, probably. So just something to kind of keep an eye on. Some fun news in the minor leagues. There's been some prospects that have been kind of moving up the ranks in the Astros, like top 30 prospect list. First round draft pick from last year, Drew Gilbert, has gotten off to a pretty solid start in High A Asheville. In the first 9 games over there, he's slashing .316, .381, .447. And so I think he still has some power numbers that he can kind of tap into, but seeing that pretty solid average, pretty good on base, the slugging is kind of there, he's stolen a base, hit a bomb, but just kind of showing like, hey, like I'm for real, and I was a good pick last year for you guys. Continue to add to that outfield depth. So just another name to kind of add to that hat as things go for him. You know, he's still a couple years away, I would think, but it's good to see that, hey, we got a first round draft pick finally again, and he's not bad. So shout out to Drew Gilbert, and hopefully he continues to progress. You know, we made a couple comments early about the Astros record and whatnot. Over the last 12 games, when they started the road trip versus the Twins, since then, they're 6-6. This trip's pretty tough. Road trip with Atlanta and then Tampa, and then finishing off the month at home versus the Phillies. So your next 3 series are playoff-ish teams. Like all 3 of these teams expect to be in the postseason. And so, you know, I mentioned that Toronto comes to town, and the Astros kind of seemed like they kind of elevated their play a little bit. Like they were playing a little bit more competitively. There was a little bit more electricity in the air for them. And so maybe going to Atlanta, going to Tampa, and then getting Philadelphia back at home kind of starts getting that, okay, we're off our World Series high. We're back into 2023, and now let's get this train rolling a little bit. Currently in the West, the Rangers are 12-6, off to a pretty good start for them. Their arms are all staying healthy, and their bullpen's been really solid, and came into Houston 1-2 out of 3, good on them. And then the Astros and Angels are both 9-10. Seattle is 8-11. And then, the Oakland Athletics currently are sitting at 3-16. So that's kind of a quick overview of the West. Going to the Braves, they're 14-5 so far. Tampa Bay had that crazy start. They've, I don't want to say cooled off or come back to reality, because their record is still really good, but they've added a few more losses. You know, now they're 16-3. Still 16 wins. Like those guys have been playing really good baseball. And then Philadelphia coming off a really kind of rough first week and a half, and they're coming in at 8-12. So 3 pretty good teams that we gotta get through to finish off this first month of baseball. But I think this team is kind of right where I thought we were gonna be. I figured slow start. I figured the offense would be a little bit behind, and I figured we'd be pitching well enough to be kind of a 500 team this first month, and then we start to elevate as we kind of get into May, and then get into June, get Altuve, get Brantley, get Lance, get back to full strength, try to stay healthy, and get this team back to where they need to be. But that'll do it, I think, for this little recap. Probably check back in after the Tampa Bay series just to kind of see how these next 6 games go before we get back to kind of a World Series rematch for the Phillies. So this is Mission Control, signing off.